What's the location?
Clifton Suspension Bridge.
What's the emergency?
Right, we're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him. The case, the wheels are broken and what have you. He says there's car parts and what have you. It's got to be funny, the case is broken and it looks like it's really heavy and there's blood coming out of it. The guy with the case has run off. We're now with the case, it's blood. We're convinced it's blood.
At first, it sounds like a mistake, then something of a joke, and then more like something from a horror scene. What has happened? A man carrying suitcases filled with human remains across one of Britain's most famous bridges. Who is this man? Where is he now? And for police, where to start?
We get descriptions, the CCTV from the suspension bridge.
Detective Inspector Neil Meade led the inquiry in the first few days for Avon and Somerset Police, brought in on his day off.
It's one of the phone calls you get, you're thinking, there must be a mistake. And you know, the more information you get, it transpires, no, there is a body in this suitcase, or parts of a body in this suitcase. And we know we've got a male that's left the suitcases on the bridge. We don't know why at that stage he's left them on the bridge. In fact, we don't even know why now he left them on the bridge. And we know that male is unidentified and he has left the scene. And at that stage, we didn't know where he was. A passing cyclist had intervened and got some video footage of the male, so I had a really clear image of the male. And I know that he'd left the suspension bridge towards the North Somerset side. We had the police helicopters deployed, the drones deployed, police dogs deployed, and any available staff we had out on the ground trying to identify and intercept our suspect as quickly as possible. How is often with the case, with these sort of cases, we then get what I call the golden nuggets, and generally we get these during an investigation, not always. And we had a resident of one of the streets close to the suspension bridge phone us and say, I saw a red van last night drop a male off with 2 suitcases. And so with nothing else to go on, at that stage, I then spoke to my intelligence officers to try to work out what this red van was. At the time, and I still think the same now, if he'd been dropped off in a white van, we would have been a lot further down the line before we traced that van. So we were able to get a registration for that vehicle, and that's all I had to go on at that stage. So I authorised the driver, the owner of that van, to be arrested.
And what did he know?
So he was spoken to quite quickly in London, and he told us that he picked a male up from an address in Shepherd's Bush the night before and taken him to Bristol.
This footage shows that driver loading the van in Scots Road, Shepherd's Bush in West London, oblivious to what is in the suitcases, oblivious he's helping a killer make a getaway. But initial inquiries at Scots Road suggest the address might be irrelevant.
That stage, we identified a male that lived at that address, so did some work around his telephone, and his telephone was still moving around in London, in a different part of London. So I was relatively satisfied at that stage that the person registered that address certainly wasn't the victim. It transpires that that person's telephone, who's registered that address, was an ex-partner of one of the victims that was later identified. What we've got at that stage, we've got an address label on a suitcase, a very old address label on a suitcase, and I've got an address in London where the person registered that address is still moving around, or their phone is at least. Yeah. So it's a lead, but it's not telling me anything specific at that time.
But by now, rumours are starting. Why is there a forensic tent on the most famous gateway to the region's biggest city? Brunel's Great Bridge is one of Bristol's biggest tourist draws, but today's spectacle is police tape and cordons as people ask why. There's loose talk of body parts and suitcases, soon confirmed.
Sadly, the suitcases contained human remains. An immediate search of the area was carried out by officers on the ground.
Police have the image from the cyclist's video. Have you seen this man? they try to calm a city that's stunned.
At this stage, we are not aware of any current risk he poses to the wider public. However, if anyone sees him, we advise them not to approach him, and please do call 999 immediately.
Just describe what you saw, what happened.
Now news has broken, witnesses come forward. Roger Malone, the former HTV News sports presenter, he'd been with his son waiting for a taxi and watched the suspect struggling with the suitcases before crossing the bridge.
This big guy is trying to drag a huge suitcase across here and he couldn't pick it up. You know, it was so heavy, and a couple of people were helping him get it across. And my son, he likes to talk to people. He said, "Hello, mate." He said, "What have you got in there? That's heavy, isn't it? You're dragging that across. What have you got in there, a body?"
It becomes apparent the suspect had been stuck, so tried another tactic.
As that was unsuccessful, a taxi was then ordered, which literally took our offender from just this side of the bridge by the Mall in Clifton, just over the other side, literally 200-300 yards.
So now, on July the 12th, 36 hours after the suitcases were first seen, the inquiry's second strand in West London leads to a further gruesome discovery.
Wasn't that concerned about that address, but there was a niggling doubt in my mind that I needed to go into that address. Okay, I think it did become quite obvious quite quickly that is probably where the murder had taken place. Prior to that, I'd received information that there was a torso in each suitcase, so I now knew that I had at least 2 victims. There were body parts missing, but we knew with 2 torsos we had at least 2 victims. So the officers that went into Scots Road in Shepherd's Bush, the Met Police, found a freezer within that premises which had the missing body parts in it.
The remains are identified as 62-year-old swimming instructor Albert Alfonso and his partner Paul Longworth, who was 71. People here say for the last few weeks the pair's had a visitor from Colombia, a 34-year-old Yostin Mosquera. So what's happened? Soon police will look at security cameras. The footage shows Paul Longworth at the windows of his flat talking with a friend on the street. It's mid-morning 2 days earlier, the 8th of July. At lunchtime, Mosquera is seen closing the curtains. Detectives believe soon afterwards Mr. Longworth is murdered, hit around the head and stuffed under a bed. Half an hour later, Mosquera has opened the curtains, the killing done. That evening, Albert Alfonso returns home from the gym with Mosquera, unaware his partner is dead and hidden. He and Mosquera are seen walking into the flat. Within an hour and a half, Mosquera would murder him too, as they have sex. The murder is filmed on 2 cameras. The trial's jury would have to watch the killing happen. Moments afterwards, Mosquera is filmed performing a dance.
Twist is also en tu mala carne.
From the evidence I've seen, Paul was killed sometime before Albert and placed under the bed within the flat. So that's not a moment of madness. That's not somebody just snapping. That's somebody that has planned to kill one of them at Paul, hide his body, wait for Albert to come home, then go on to have sex with Albert in quite an extreme fashion, and then at the point that he decided to then take Albert's life as well. Although it's more and more these days with CCTV, ring doorbells, people with mobile phones, we do get quite a lot of murders caught on camera now. But I don't think I've ever seen a case where it's so specifically been intentionally recorded. And watching that video, as was shown in court, is you can't help but be impacted by that. This is a man that's had his life taken in the most brutal of fashions, live on video.
The following day, Mosquera buys and gets delivered this chest freezer. It's in here that after dismembering his victims, he stores body parts that he doesn't stuff into the suitcases. He then hires that red van and goes to Bristol. He's also tried unsuccessfully to take thousands of pounds from his victims' bank accounts.
What police in London are first looking for and then analysing this CCTV footage, the main question remains, Where is Yostin Mosquera? The inquiry has now transferred from Avon and Somerset Police to Scotland Yard. But the last sighting of him remains here in Bristol. So how concerned should people and the police be that a man capable of this is roaming free and desperate?
Yes, it's a massive concern to me that I've got a man on the run here that was last seen in Bristol. Nothing suggests he's left Bristol, either on an aeroplane, a train or a taxi. I know his phone was last in Bristol. But by this time, the intelligence picture had developed, working alongside the Met Police, that we had a suspect. We were getting to know who our victims were, and that they were known to each other. So although there's always a possibility he could have gone on and committed further offences whilst in Bristol, it was a known victim to the known offender.
Now police have an identity for their prime suspect, but not his location. Where is Yostin Mosquera?
He did some work around his telephones. So we had the WhatsApp message he had sent to the van driver, so we had a telephone number for him. So there's tactics we can use with telephones to trace where they are, you know. But unfortunately, by the time we'd identified him, his phone was switched off, and we didn't know where he was.
Is he in Bristol? Has he returned to London? Has he somehow fled abroad? What threat does he pose to people he doesn't know? He's disappeared seemingly without a trace.
Okay, bear in mind we're 48 hours later now. He's had no sightings of him. You know, this is the male that's wearing quite distinctive clothing. It's all over the press, nationally, and in Bristol, and there's been no sightings of this of the male.
The breakthrough comes after Mosquera has been on the run for 2 full days.
At midnight on the Friday night, I had a phone call from a superintendent in the Met Police who was running their manhunt side of it, saying that his phone was moving again in Bristol. It had come live again in the Clifton area, and we could track the phone along Hot Wells Road. He's walking through Bristol right during the nighttime economy on a Friday night, Saturday morning, walking through the centre of Bristol, one shoe on, having had his picture put all over the press, and nobody phoned us to say they'd seen him, which was quite a concern for me. So what we did then is I called upon our surveillance teams. It's just a guess, but an educated guess, that he was going to be going towards the train station. So by the time I mobilised the surveillance team and the armed officers, they intercepted him at Bristol Temple Meads just shortly after midnight on the Saturday morning.
Secure.
Can't work out to this day a number of things. Is firstly, why did Mosquera move the bodies to Bristol?
You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything but may harm your defence if you do not mention what in question.
Why did he leave parts of the bodies in London? Why did he feel the need to cut the bodies up afterwards? A lot of these questions I still haven't got the answers to this day.
What's your name? Nombre?
Jot.
Jot?
Yeah.
Dot or Joss?
Jot.
Surname? Jot what?
Jot. Mosquera.
Mosquera?
Yeah.
During his trial, Mosquera denied the murders of Albert and Paul. He said that Albert had killed Paul and he, Mosquera, was guilty only of Paul's manslaughter. But the jury were not convinced and convicted him of double murder. Now, in the aftermath, there are still so many questions about this. Why here? Why the bridge? The perplexity of the complexity of this half-witted getaway.
Now Mosquera faces a life sentence for a double murder, which has in effect ended 3 lives, including his own.